With over a dozen years of experience exploring yogic techniques from traditions like hatha, ashtanga, vipassana, qigong, and Buddhist contemplative sciences, Nino Rex has finally honed her unique skill set in helping students achieve breakthroughs in their yoga practice. From the foothills of the Himalayas in Rishikesh to Sri Lanka, Nino has sat with teachers near and far, gleaming insights from yogic texts and traditions. As a teacher for Pure Yoga Institute and a teacher for our monthly Flow and Philosophize class here at Pure Yoga Austin downtown, Nino sees herself as a facilitator, helping all yogis in our community apply codified tools and techniques in an accessible and safe manner to experience the time-tested transformative benefits of ancient practices. Welcome, Nino. Welcome to Pure Yoga Talk. My name is Lane. I'll be guiding us through our conversation, interviewing Nino. So first off, Nino, you guide our Flow and Philosophize class.
Yes.
And we just want to put the spotlight on you and figure out what that's all about. But first, can you tell us about your first yoga experience, or maybe, and then also your first hot yoga experience? Just tell us about that. How'd you get into this?
Absolutely. So when I was a college student in New York, which is also my hometown, I started going to Yoga to the People down on St. Mark's, which is now closed. And they allowed you to pay, whatever you wanted, which was really important for me at the time. So sometimes I just had like a couple bucks to like toss into the donation box, and that was totally fine. And then I started branching out, and I discovered Ishta yoga, and that's where I would say I discovered like what yoga truly was for me, in the sense that it gave me the tools to find a deep sense of stillness. It like really was great for my mental health, and it turned a lot of things around for me. So they taught like kind of a classical hatha style there. So I was doing Yoga to the People, some Ishta yoga, and then I saw that at Yoga to the People, they had a couple of hot yoga studios, and to go to those classes, you had to pay $5. So it was a little more expensive. And so I thought, fancy stuff over there. What's going on there? So I tried it out, and I noticed that it was pretty different from like the kinds of yoga I had been practicing, because, there is harsh lighting, there's bright lights, there's a mirror, everyone's sweating right next to you. It's really hot in there. So there were a lot of differences, going from like kind of a quiet, dimly lit room to an experience like that. And so for a little while, I had my nose kind of turned up at it, because I thought like, I'm not getting that inward experience that I'm used to. But then I realized over practice that the shavasanas are really key in hot yoga, because there is all this outward moving energy. Your eyes are always open. You're very active. It's physically very demanding. And you have to be able to drop that immediately when you go into the shavasanas, in between the postures and then at the very end. So you start from a higher level of agitation, higher level of exertion, but you have more way to go to find that relaxation. So it's just better. It's more of a rigorous process, which really helps in the actual living world, because in the living world, you don't have a quiet, dimly lit room. You have all this chaos. So you're learning how to manage yourself in the midst of all of that. And so that was extremely beneficial, because you have to work harder to find your peace. And also, it's just so good for your body. I mean, our body is how we interact with the world. And so, it's great for the joints. It's a lifelong practice. It's relatively less injury prone than other forms of yoga. So, So yeah, all of those benefits I just realized and had to, keep practicing. And now I get to be at Pure, and we have such amazing teachers and such a beautiful community. And I'm so happy to be a part of it.
Awesome. We are so lucky to have you. Um, Thank you for answering that question. My next question that I'd like to ask you is just point blank, what is yogic philosophy?
Sure. Yeah. So, yogic philosophy, usually when we talk about it, it refers to Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, which were written in about 200 CE or a little earlier than that, and comes from India. And it's 200 aphorisms, which are broken down into four parts that talk about the practice and philosophy of yoga. And so, usually, when we talk about the yoga school or the yogic tradition, we're talking about that very particular branch um, of the yogic tradition. But it's important to realize that Patanjali was coming out of a tradition that already had um, people practicing yoga, pursuing enlightenment, and doing asanas and breath work and meditation. So this was a part of a culture that had flourished long before him. And so there aren't, philosophy is not just limited to what Patanjali said, but we have, sages from all different traditions of yoga that have different things to say and different things to teach. So we will look at the Yoga Sutras, but we might also look at elements of prayer in Christianity that are contemplative, that help people go inward. We might look at Tai Chi or Qigong from Taoism, which also is focuses on the breath and body and movement and mindfulness. So across traditions, we have certain elements that are yogic, and we want to find out what those elements are. So we're not going to just stick to the Yoga Sutras. We're gonna go broader and see from like an eagle eye view what yogic philosophy is and what are the similarities and differences across different traditions.
Oh, I love that. Well, if you could, in regard to yogic philosophy,
Mhm.
what would you say are some yogic concepts or maybe some impactful verses that are applicable to today's world? Like, what are your practical applications of yogic philosophy in your life?
Ooh, nice. So there are two things I can talk about here, which were, really powerful for me to learn. So the first concept is pratyahara. So that is actually considered limb number 5 of Ashtanga yoga, classical Ashtanga yoga, written by Patanjali in his Yoga Sutras, part 2 of the whole sutras. And he gets into into the 8 limbs of yoga, number 3 of which is asana, number 4 of which pranayama, number 5 pratyahara. So pratyahara is the retreat of the senses inward, meaning that usually when we go about our daily lives, our senses are spilling out, and that we're constantly looking at stuff, we're feeling things, we're thinking about things, and we're just very enmeshed with the world. And so we don't often realize that there's this opportunity to step back from the situations, from the sensory input, from all the situation making that we do. So that was really critical for me to understand that, you have to withdraw in order to be fully present, right? So if you're running on empty, if you're constantly in the world and enmeshed with it, you're not going to be able to have the clearest perspective on what's going on around you. So in yoga, what we're doing is we're creating that pratyahara experience. We're creating that inward momentum so that we can be less likely to be pulled in this direction or that direction by all the things that arise in reality. Actually, this makes me think of the Rudyard Kipling poem called If, and I'm just going to read a little bit of it. So, uh, if you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you, if you can trust yourself when all men doubt you, but make allowance for their doubting too, if you can wait and not be tired by waiting or be lied about, don't deal in lies, or being hated, don't give way to hating, etc., etc., etc. The idea here is that we want to find this stillness so that even as the world turns around us, we're able to hold on to our truth, hold on to what's real, and use that as our guiding light to help us navigate the world. So,
Oh, that's so powerful. One thing I love that you said is
mhm.
inward momentum. I think
Mm,
that those two words kind of stimulate yeah, that pratyahara feeling, or just like
yeah,
yogic philosophy in general is kind of like inward moving. I
yes,
love that.
absolutely.
Inward momentum.
Hmm.
Pratyahara is so powerful. Yeah, I feel like with the yoga practice, and especially with the stimulation of
Hmm.
the hot yoga practice,
Hmm.
it's like it's so stimulating, and then that savasana hits, and you're like,
Yeah.
whoa! You start to feel your inner energy, and you're like, and it's like, welcome to your inner sensory awareness. This is it. Like it's like I don't think I had a palate for that until
Mm,
I
mhm.
until I, started my asana practice, which is interesting because that's not how it was long ago. But yeah,
Yeah,
it's interesting.
in Ashtanga yoga, created by Patabi Joyce, he one of his philosophies was that you exhaust the body so that you can go inward really deep, so that you exhaust the body as well as the mind through struggle. And then when you come to that shavasana at the end, you're able to find a much deeper peace. So it's, all the yogis are aware of this phenomenon, and are trying to help you cultivate it by giving you the tools to press the right buttons, so to speak, to generate that letting go experience, because, if someone tells you to let go, it's kind of hard to do with, so these are practical, pragmatic steps that allow you to let go and withdraw.
Absolutely. And it's like when
Mhm.
someone, a yoga teacher, tells you to let go in Savasana, at first, your first class, you could be like, let go of what? Like, I don't have anything in my hands. You know, it is interesting though,
Hmm.
the like subtle energy landscape
Hmm.
that is introduced to yoga practitioner. It's like
Absolutely.
suddenly, like
Mm.
pratyahara, for example, like I didn't even know that was an option. All my sensory, like I'm just navigated by my sensory awareness being like totally entertained by
Yes.
this outside world,
Mhm.
food and
Yeah.
sight and colors and
Mhm.
love and everything. But to have even the option, it's like
Yes.
a muscle or something, the
Yes.
option to go from here to
Yes.
and just
Exactly.
own your energy is just such a powerful experience. But yeah, just a little piece of yogic philosophy. And interesting,
Yeah.
one little point I want to make here is it's interesting in the yogic world, at least studying it as we do as Westerners, how sometimes we look at yogic philosophy from an academic standpoint
Hmm.
and like kind of speculate as like outside spectators. And
Hmm.
then you have yogis that are integrating that philosophy into their lives, not academically, but like as if it were mystical and spiritual truth,
Yes, definitely.
which I feel like this kind of class is kind of just integrating all of that. So if you
Yeah.
are into wanting to figure out what this is all about, what's the deeper levels of all of this, seems like a really good opportunity.
Yeah, exactly. So what you just said about it being like a lived practice, it actually directly relates to this passage in a book. Sorry, I want to read something else, if that's okay.
Please give us all the books. We love it.
Okay, just a quick paragraph. This is from Chogyam Trungpa's Cutting Through Spiritual Materialism, which is one of the things that we've read in class.
Beautiful.
Before.
We will link that here.
Nice. Yeah. So it's from page 17. There's a saying in Tibetan scriptures: knowledge must be burned, hammered, and beaten like pure gold. Then one can wear it as an ornament. So when you receive spiritual instruction from the hands of another, you do not take it in uncritically, but you burn it, you hammer it, you beat it until the bright, dignified color of gold appears. Then you craft it into an ornament in whatever design you like and put it on. Therefore, Dharma is applicable to every age and to every person. It has a living quality. Blah, blah, blah. The teachers are an individual personal experience. So when we think about philosophy, this is one of the most intriguing things about yoga, is that it is a science. It's an inward science. So nothing's being asked of you. Nothing's being asked of you to believe. Quite the opposite. And that's why this practice is able to stand the test of time, because over time, over cultures and centuries, you have dogmatic, you have like cultures and authorities that will want to instill certain dogmatic beliefs, right?
Fundamentalists.
Yes.
Like, this is the answer.
Exactly.
We are king. Follow us.
Exactly.
They are the answers.
Yes.
Dogma.
Yes. And yoga teaches us to be critical of pretty much everything, to approach life with an experimental mindset. Like, is this true? Can I test it out? Can I see the effects? And can I move on from there? And so while the Yoga Sutras or other texts are kind of looked at from this kind of religious or maybe exotic perspective, like even in India and outside of India and throughout time in different ages, what these guys were really doing was writing a practical manual on how to generate certain experiences and not and think of the world and place yourself within the world, not because you believe it, but because you do the work, you see the effects, and then you can move on from there. So I think that's one of the greatest contributions. It's like, I consider it like the original science. Like we think of external sciences, but this is really the foundation for science. Is like, let's see what happens when we do this. So yeah, east-west differences that we tend to think of when it comes to like yogic practices. There that wall is a lot less reified and hard than we tend to think of it.
Oh man, I love that. How did you get into all this anyway?
Yeah, great question. So I had a lot of like mental health challenges in college, and once I started practicing yoga and meditation especially, so much stuff that I had going on just cleared up, and I had to investigate like, why did yoga do that? How does yoga mechanistically have that effect on my body and my mind? Like, it was intriguing for me, and those questions I'm still trying to answer today. Like, why is this practice so powerful? Why does it help so many people? And what new things can I learn from it? So in college I was lucky to take a class with one of the great scholars of Buddhist Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, Robert Thurman, who was also Uma Thurman's dad, funnily enough. But he was teaching a class on Indo-Tibetan Buddhism, and I started learning things like why compassion is important. Like, why is it, like, practically speaking, why is it a good idea to be compassionate? Well, when you're compassionate, you don't have a guilty conscience, for example. It's easier to move inward when you have compassion, when you treat others the way you want to be treated, and so forth. So philosophy was not just telling you how to, dogmatically approach the world, but it was giving you specific reasons for why this is a good idea and how it helps in cultivating peace. So I was really attracted to like someone having an explanation, as like the skeptic Westerner, like this stuff was very approachable for me because it kind of starts with that skeptical basis, and doesn't tell you to like believe something, but provides like explanations.
I love that. Thank you so much. So why do you think, I mean, we've already talked about this, but the reason why this is all valuable and important is why?
Why? Yes, why? Why is, first of all, yoga doesn't, stop and start within the four walls of a yoga studio classroom, right? Yoga, it's not like we only work with our minds or bodies within the yoga classroom. We take our bodies and minds outside of the classroom too. So how do we engage with the world? Yoga philosophy tries to provide some insight, how to manage ourselves so that we can be in harmony with everything else. And so philosophy, studying this stuff is really important because it provides kind of like a North Star for us to, follow in times of like doubt, things that we've previously thought about, things we've come to, reason about and decide on in a, through concerted effort. We can take that into our worlds and integrate that right into the fabric of the texture of our lived experience. So when a situation arises, we already have the philosophical tools to approach those situations from a place of peace and calm and understanding and compassion and so forth. So we are learning tools for interacting with the world beyond the yoga classroom with philosophy.
Oh, such a beautiful why. It's like so many people do come to that point, like in their practice. And a lot of times I feel like in the West, as it started with me, it started with yoga practice. And then it's just like, especially with, I mean, you can start in so many different yoga practices, but it's like at some point, if you continue that practice and you're disciplined, it's going to introduce you to a more subtle energy landscape.
Yes,
totally. And if you don't know what I'm talking about, keep going. Like this is going to happen. And if you have more questions, you go to Nino's class or you ask your teacher. But I think this is why it's so important that we have Flow and Philosophize, is because these yogic practices are so powerful. And if you stay consistent, you might have more questions about how to like integrate this stuff you're learning into your life. And then also just like more questions about the why, or just like how to even just to have a place to go where you can practice and then be like, okay, what's all this philosophy stuff?
Yeah.
It's just a great opportunity.
Yeah. And like these guys were aware that yogis were going to have questions, and they wrote this stuff up kind of as like a primer, as an explainer, like, hey, you do these practices, these are the effects. And so if you happen to notice the effect, you might be like, ooh, what is that? Where did that come from? Why did it happen? And so you can look at these texts and see what these people had to say about it. And it helps you gain more awareness about what it is that you're actually doing in the classroom, and helps you connect to the tradition more, and helps you realize that you are a part of the tradition, and then you're doing these things, and maybe you have something to say about it.
Wow, so beautiful. And I also love that yogic philosophy, like you said before, it's not like fundamental dogma like you find in a lot of other religions. It's not a religion because of that. And you can even be practicing a different religion and it can integrate into your practice, right? Like,
totally.
What's that like for somebody that would be a little nervous about getting into yoga period, or yogic philosophy period, because they think it might be dogmatic or like fundamental, like what would you say to them?
Yeah, that's great. So it's important to remember that, I mentioned this earlier, but Patanjali was writing about something that was pre-existing for thousands of years. So people were experimenting and doing these things for a really long time, and they didn't all come from the same tradition. Some, you might have just been a householder previously, and now you're a sadhu in the forest. So there are lots of different people from lots of different traditions and backgrounds and heritages that started doing these things, and they weren't all on the same page. Now, when outsiders came to India and they saw what was happening, they wanted to kind of box it and put it into, put a nice label on it and say, hey, this is Hinduism, and these are the things that make it up. And yoga is one branch of Hinduism, and it's an orthodox branch because XYZ. And, you can put these layers of theoretical and historical understandings on top of the practices, and that's fine and good and helps us understand more about it in a certain sense. But ultimately, the yogis are saying, hey, I'm not trying to force anything down your throat. You do the practice, you see the results for yourself, and you decide if you want to keep doing it or not. It's not it's not super dogmatic. It's experiential based, fundamental.
I love that. I love that. Well, of course, because nonviolence. But there's never been a war that's been started over yoga, and there never will be. You know what I mean? It's just that would never work because of how it is. Okay. Yeah, it's I love the yoga so much. Thank God.
Yes.
But it's just
100%.
so beautiful in that way. Somehow it has stayed relevant,
right?
and beautiful, and this thing that is so beautiful for humanity.
Totally, 100%. And that's why it's growing so powerfully through the world and spreading very quickly, because it is so effective in helping to cease afflictive emotions that cause the violence, that cause the messy situations. It helps neutralize some of those energies. And so, you know, high energy, it's not bad. It just has to be moderated. Low energy is not bad, but you don't want to be too low. You want to come to this balance. And so balance is what we're missing in the world, and balance is what yoga is offering. So highly relevant, like you were saying.
Lastly, for our listeners, first let's just start with the structure of the class. What can they expect? When is it? How long is it? What's the structure?
So the structure is it's 4 parts. So we start with some asana to grease the joints and help us sit comfortably in an upright position, which is the original purpose of asanas, to allow yourself to go inward without being distracted by the creaks in the body and so forth. So we'll start with Savasana, then we'll move on to pranayama. So we'll start that inward journey, that going inward. So pranayama helps relax the nervous system so that you can stop being so outward focused and start going inside. And then we have meditation, the final 20 minutes of that first hour. And so it'll be instructed, guided in the beginning, and then you'll have your meditation experience. And then after those 3, we'll have a little break, and we will do our philosophizing portion, which is made up of maybe 1 or 2 sources. It could be, something from the Yoga Sutras. It could be something from someone's blog. It can be a scientific article. So it'll be a mix of different sources to help us think about yoga from different perspectives and approaches. And no prerequisites. There are no prerequisites. You don't have to have a PhD in philosophy to, hang out. And you might want to bring your reading glasses because we go around and we take turns reading. So it's a highly collaborative and community effort to glean some knowledge or some wisdom from these texts. So we're doing it together, and we're bringing our own experiences in as we're reading these texts. And there are some guiding questions at the end in case, we run out of things to talk about. But it's a space for us to reflect on these texts and to disagree or maybe agree or find a new, favorite author.
That's cool to hammer it out, like your poem said. Like,
exactly.
Let's talk about it. You don't like it? You do like it? It stimulates anger. It stimulates joy. Let's talk about it. Let's hammer it out.
Exactly. Yeah. And we can do that in a safe community space, totally. In a cute, organized way. So yeah, it's great for, people, in a yoga classroom, we don't often get to talk and hang out and introduce ourselves. So this is kind of adding that layer to the yoga class, which I'd love to see more of because, people want to hang out. And this is one way to do it.
Oh, I love that. Okay, what time and when?
It'll be once a month this entire year on certain Sundays at 10 a.m. in the Treehouse at Pure Yoga Texas downtown. So we have a cozy little space, and love to see everyone there.
10 a.m. once a month, the Treehouse, downtown Austin. That is awesome. Yes. What a great opportunity to gather in community, to sit in meditation together, and to explore these deeper spiritual experiences together and talk about them, because it's so helpful to have friends on the path and to not be alone.
Totally. Yeah. In Buddhism, there's a notion of the Sangha, the community of practitioners. And it's one of the 3 jewels of Buddhism. One of the fundamental aspects is this community of practitioners that studies and grows and matures together and helps each other. So that's kind of what we're trying to do here. And Pure Yoga is trying to make that happen. So it's really great.
Oh, thank you so much, Nino, just for sharing your wisdom and for just being who you are. You're such an incredible resource. And what I love about you is whenever I connect with you, I just know I can be myself and just a loving and wise and humble, bright light. And I'm very thankful that you're offering this to the community and that you're so involved. It's a great opportunity for us. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lane. It wouldn't be possible without people like you and, people like the yoga community who are trying to, get more out of the practice and learn more and go deeper. And I'm on the path too. I see myself just as a facilitator here. I'm trying to learn just like everyone else. So secretly I'm being a little selfish, let's study this stuff together. And I want to learn from you guys. And so it's bi-directional learning. I'm definitely not a teacher of, philosophy here. We're trying to learn together and grow together. And it's really great that there's a demand and there's a space for it. So it wouldn't be possible without people like you. So thank you, Lane.
Oh, you're welcome. And thank you for the community. You guys come and take advantage of this. It's a great opportunity to connect, to go deeper, and to, just do life together. Wonderful. Yeah, thank you so much, Nino. And thank you to our viewers. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next time at Pure Yoga Talk.
Bye, guys. Thank you.